Apple Watch repairs, and beepers' final gasps. This is Mac Voices. Mac Voices is supported by the MacVoices Slack. Discussions, questions, and answers, and a place to talk tech with your friends. The MacVoices Slack is available to all patrons of Mac Voices. Sign up at patreon.com/MacVoices and join in. Welcome to Mac Voices. This is the talk of the Apple community, and I'm Chuck Joyner. Folks, this is Mac Voices Live. In fact, this is the last Mac Voices Live of 2023, because by the time we reconvene next, we will have crossed over the calendar line and be into 2024. But we are going to continue to do these shows every Tuesday night, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific, whatever time that is, wherever you are. You should be with us here on YouTube at youtube.com/MacVoicesTV. We have some friends in the chat room already. It's a weird night because as we were talking pre-show, some businesses had off today. Some businesses did not. Some stores were closed today. Some were not. It's all kind of discombobulated. But that said, you know what? Mac Voices Live goes on. We have a lot of stuff, surprisingly enough. Plus, we wanted to make this sort of an end-of-the-year big story show, but we also have some current stories that need to be looked at. But before we get to all that, we're going to rip around the table and see who's here and then go from there. I'm trying a little bit different layout tonight on my screen. Doesn't mean anything to you. But David Ginsburg, for some reason, is still showing up in the top left of my screen. Dave, good to have you.
Good to be here. Happy holidays, everybody. I hope everybody had a great Christmas for those who celebrate, and so glad to be here for the Mac Voices Live.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Eric Bolden has brought his Finch back again. This time I see it, Eric. Good to have you.
Yeah, I was trying to switch to something more holiday-oriented, but yeah, it's still resizing it. Yeah, things just got busy.
Yeah. Well, it's the holiday Finch. It's a new tradition.
So there's a chance it'll fly away and something else will show up. We'll see.
That'll be impressive. Webb Bixby is back with us. Webb, it's great to see you and your quilt.
Good to be here, Chuck. Yeah, I've had to only be in the YouTube chat room for the last couple of weeks, so it's good to be live.
Yeah, well, it's always great to have you. I'm glad you made it back for the last show of the year.
Thank you.
Also back for the last show of the year is Ms. Brittany Smith. Britt, good to see you. Thanks so much for making it.
Hey, thanks for having me.
I'm glad you're not cleaning out the spare room.
Okay, not yet anyway. Yeah, we'll find out. I have to go do that later.
Speaking of a spare room, Jeff Gamet is here.
That's a good segue.
You got to know what that means, Jeff. But hey.
Chuck, I am so proud of you.
Well, I try. I still don't have those smooth segues that we all know and love you for from the Mac Show and the British Tech Network. But yeah, I'm working on it.
That was good. I liked it.
Well, thank you.
The important thing to remember is that a segue doesn't have to be relevant. It just has to be smooth.
Well, that one definitely fit that description.
That was smooth. Yeah. And I'm happy that I get to spend, well, actually, the last two podcasts that I'll be doing this year, I think, with you, and then on Thursday with Dave.
Sounds good. And speaking of smooth, Ben Roethig is here.
Excellent segue, Chuck.
Was that good?
You're learning from the master.
I'm trying.
Of disaster.
I'm very impressed. Well done.
Good to have you, Ben.
Good to be here.
I got nothing to take us to Jim Rea. It's just Jim Rea is a force unto himself. Jim, it's good to see you.
Jim, you have your mute on.
Yeah, you're muted. So
I was having a coughing fit earlier and I forgot to unmute. I guess this is my last podcast of the year also.
Well, it's okay. We'll go out on hopefully we'll go out on a high note. Put it that way.
Not my last Zoom call though.
Oh no. That's Zoom is part of our lives now. So The first thing I wanted to touch on is that now, if you didn't take advantage of buying an Apple Watch, I kind of think you're pretty much out of luck.
In the U.S.
In the U.S., yeah.
And I checked yesterday, and Amazon still had them.
Yeah, because non-Apple retailers can still sell what they have.
Right. So
can still sell what they have.
You're not completely out of luck yet.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So if you're hearing this now, as in live, and you want one, you better go hustle and get one. If you're hearing it later, once this lands in the feeds, who knows? Something still might be available, but I wouldn't delay much longer than that. But I did throw a link in the chat room that this is kind of confusing, that Apple Watch, that Apple will not be able to repair your Apple Watch under certain circumstances, but under other circumstances they will, because of this import ban. Does anybody feel like they should be concerned about this?
Oh, little. I mean, it's really on a repair of out of warranty Apple Watches because of the import ban. I believe the ones that are still under warranty, they're obligated to cover them, so they have to do whatever they have to do to get them fixed. So that's where the concern is. You got people who have out of warranty watches. In most cases, the watch is replaced, so that is a bit of a concern. So especially if you have like a Series 6, Series 7 on and so forth. Because that's where the blood oxygen sensor started, and those models. So, it is a bit of a concern. I mean, Apple's been pretty silent about this. I think they're waiting until starting next year to ramping up. They're going after this and get this fixed somehow, whether it be a software update or getting a temporary restraining on this whole lawsuit. So it's gonna be interesting.
And I think that's one of the reasons Apple actually stopped sale of it early, to make sure there is inventory to cover warranty repairs.
Yeah, that too.
Oh, that could be, because that was something I was wondering. Like, well, if they run out, they run out, whether you've got a warranty or not.
Well, that's where it gets, I think, strange, Jim, because you're right. If they run out, they run out. But it feels like this ban is potentially preventing them from servicing their existing customers. And that, to me, was an argument that I don't think we heard pre-decision to stop selling. At least if it was, I missed it completely, because that to me is something that it seems like nobody took into consideration. And I'm talking about the court. I'm talking about the White House. Apple's already sold these things. They were okay to sell at that point. And now if I have one and it breaks, now Apple potentially will not be able to fix mine. So, anybody else?
Has anyone else
fact,
reported this besides Mac Rumors?
I will be cranky.
I'm sorry, Britt, you first and then Webb.
Yeah.
If mine stops working, I will be very cranky.
I agree. Webb?
I was wondering, has anybody else reported this besides Mac Rumors? Because I'm hearing that if you got an Apple Watch 9, which was within the last year, it's still under warranty. So,
of course.
So I think it makes,
the article
makes
says
dramatic
Bloomberg.
statements. But as Apple said that they can't do warranty repairs. That's who I'd want to ask.
Well, it said Mac Rumors claims they saw the memo and says it was also shared by Bloomberg. And, I don't know why, this seems like really easy to believe.
Well, and to throw one more wrench into it, because David, I think, was the one that said it at the outset, this is for the US. So Apple can still have watches with the blood oxygen sensor manufactured and sell them around the world. They just can't sell them in the US. So in theory, replacement watches should be available. But if I've understood the ban correctly, those watches would be stopped at the border and seized. So even if Apple makes them and has them available, and does that mean that I could send my watch to a Canadian Apple store or a Canadian Apple Service Center and have it replaced and then brought back in? I don't know.
In theory, no. Because technically it would be importing a new watch. That said, I don't think either Customs Border Protection or Canadian Border Services are going to be looking at every single Apple Watch for the receipt, but do not quote me on that.
Ben, I agree with you. I mean, I think there's a practical thing going on here, but just the idea that does that mean that watch is being sold? I mean, because the ban is on sales and imports. So where does a watch repair fall? I mean, maybe I'm trying to split hairs here, guys. I don't know. But
here's the question: is the import ban on the watch or the parts of the watch?
Well, they don't repair watches; they just replace them.
Yeah, generally they replace them.
Yeah, Ben, the answer to your question, based on what I understand, would be yes to both parts. Ban on importing the watch, ban on importing the parts to make an Apple Watch. So the idea of saying, well, why doesn't Apple just get a big truckload of parts, bring them into the US and set up a factory somewhere and start making Apple Watches? Well, they can do that as long as it's an SE. But not with they can't get the parts to do the blood oxygen sensing.
Right. Most likely, also they could do that if they were willing to lose a couple $100 per watch, because I'm sure they cannot do that economically in the United States, or they probably would.
Yeah, they would also have to set up the factory, hire employees. That takes time.
So if you have friends going to Canada and you need an Apple Watch repaired, might be a way to do it.
Put yours on their wrist, have them wear it in, and they get it fixed, and then they wear your watch back into the US. And this is how you turn your friends into mules.
Yes.
I don't think that would be illegal anyway.
Jeff Block in the chat room is asking that very question. Can I go to Canada and get it replaced and then come back to the US with it? And I mean,
could you go to Canada and buy a watch and bring it back? I think the answer is yes. The ban is that Apple can't do that.
I don't know if there's a way let's just pretend that they have the manpower to do it. Is there a way to tell from an Apple Watch serial number when it was manufactured or sold?
But I still think that the ban is on Apple importing them, not, like what if somebody lives in France, they buy an Apple Watch and come on vacation here? That's, not a problem.
No, that's not a problem.
Or, I go to France on vacation and I buy things. People do that all the time.
But you
can buy things that you can't get here in the United States.
And are you going to declare that when you come back in?
Exactly, Webb.
Which is what you
may have to declare
do.
the value, but that doesn't mean, you don't have to declare what, they don't ask you what patents does this violate.
No, of course not. Of course not.
But if I have an Apple Watch when I leave the country and I have an Apple on my wrist and I have an Apple Watch when I come back in the country, that's why I was asking the serial number. And again, that would be insane to try to.
Yeah, practically speaking, what you're describing, totally possible. Go to Canada, buy a watch, put it on your wrist, come back in the United States. But I'm pretty sure that if you go to Canada and buy an Apple Watch and bring it into the United States, you have just violated the import ban.
I don't think so, because I think that ban is against Apple.
Well, if that were the case, then Best Buy could go buy a bunch of Apple Watches in Canada, bring them in the U.S. and sell them. And they can't do that. They can only sell the inventory they have.
They probably can't do that because they have contracts with Apple that don't allow them to do that.
I wish we had an export legal expert with us.
Another question is, does Apple send watches directly to Canada, or do those get routed through the United States?
That's another good question.
But okay, I'm sure like Europe, they're probably not going through the United States. So,
well, $10 if they were going through the U.S., they're not now. Now they figured they've set up a direct supply chain. Yeah, because why would you shut down Canada? Because of a U.S. ban.
Yeah.
Is Apple country based? You went to Canada and bought a watch, isn't it covered by Apple Care in Canada? And then you might run into a problem based on sale dates, trying to get a warranty repair in the U.S. potentially.
Well, people do move from
country to country, true.
Country to country, and I'm sure there's people that, for one reason or another, buy Apple equipment, on a trip, like, my phone broke, I need a phone now, so I'm gonna buy it now, and worry about, I need a phone now more than I need the money, and I'm sure that gets worked out somehow.
Looking at Apple's support discussions, if you buy an Apple Watch outside the country where you live, and then try and get warranty service in the country where you live, you may have to get it exchanged for a watch that's sold in your country.
So
the warranty is a big problem. I deal with that all the time.
And part of that can have to do with software restrictions based on regions.
Mm-hmm. So Brad in the chat room says, say you buy it, meaning an Apple Watch in Canada, with U.S. funds on a credit card. That could be a problem, but cash probably would work. Would a credit card be an issue, though? Because I don't think that credit cards list the items purchased. So it would just show up as, I spent X number of dollars with Apple Canada.
People do it all the time. They're buying things, and it's a small item that's bringing it with them and don't declare it. And I mean, people are going to assume that. What I was going to say is, in the corporate world, you got laptops. You got people who we originally had somebody who was, let's say, in France, and then they transferred their job to the United States. They have in our case, a Dell laptop that's certified warranty for France and not the U.S. So now you got to go through the process of getting that warranty transferred. In that case, that has to happen because if we ever have to get service on that particular laptop that person had, then we wouldn't be able to get it fixed. I mean, you can't get under warranty because it was originally purchased in that origin country.
Listen, we can sit here and draw up scenarios all day, but I think it gives folks an idea of some of the complexities of this. And there is a case of, let the buyer beware. But, if you go to Canada, maybe you come home with, like 7 Apple Watches strapped to your arm and then sell them.
So how soon do you think we'll have to wait for a new Apple Watch? Do you think they'll, come out slightly earlier than normal, or will it still be September?
I think it'll still be September. And I think by the time that new Apple Watch comes out, Apple will have this resolved in some fashion.
Whether it's software change or we're working it out with litigation on this.
Yeah, I personally think they're going to end up writing a giant check. Whether it's licensing a patent or just plain buying massive amount.
And so far this is just theoretical, but when actual customers start popping up saying, I couldn't get my watch repaired, Apple is going to need to resolve that ASAP.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So how long before we see a news report about someone being stopped at the U.S.-Canada border for trying to smuggle Apple Watches into the U.S.?
Infinite time.
I
don't think
we're no more than a couple weeks away from that story.
Oh, I'm sure. Are you kidding? Because it's Apple, they'll jump on that.
They'll find something.
Yeah.
Maybe, but it's a ridiculous story.
It is.
But I do think we're going to start seeing stories of my watch broke and Apple won't fix it.
Right. Because you're right, Jim. It'll be spun that way. That it's Apple's fault. Yeah.
Well, it is their fault.
Yeah.
Whose fault is it?
Well, that remains to be finalized, because we still have these legal actions outstanding, and there's nothing final. There are no final decisions on it. So,
well, yeah, there has been, but Apple's appealing it. So the legal system has established that it's Apple's fault.
But
Apple is appealing that, but
but not without a final decision. I mean, because
if somebody gets tried for murder and convicted, don't they go to jail? They can still appeal it, but they're in jail till for a long time.
Yes and no on that one. But we don't need to go down that path. But
even if they're rich, I think they're still going to jail.
No, they're not.
Not necessarily.
If they're convicted, who? They could be on bail during
Detective
the trial,
Kevin DeValkyrie in Kansas City, Missouri Police Department.
And he was convicted?
He was convicted, went on appeal.
And he didn't have to serve
while waiting for the appeal, he did not have to serve.
Now a judge can block that.
Yeah.
But if they leave the option open, make bail and then you're out.
Bail is during the trial. It's not after conviction. If you're convicted and sentenced, you go to jail.
Not automatically.
And you wait.
Not automatically.
Nope.
I think we need a lawyer here. You go to jail.
Webb is correct.
Yeah, I don't believe it.
Yeah.
Now let's not get into the discussion of whether that's right or wrong, because I agree with you that you get convicted, you go to jail. But that wasn't the question. The question was, do you? Sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. It all depends on what happened on appeal. This particular situation of mine, which we don't want to get into the deep woods on, but he was a police officer serving a warrant. So,
most recently, Elizabeth Holmes, who was convicted of fraud, went through her entire appeals process before having to finally report.
That's true.
Good one. Yeah. I'm going to move us up.
Yeah, please.
Nice. Jeff just put in our private chat from MacVoices Law. Dum. Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Jeff. Oh God.
The companies involved are presumed innocent under the law.
Just the facts. Just the facts. So I'm going to throw a whole bunch of links here into both chat rooms, and I feel we can't completely let this go. Because there have been more developments in the beeper saga, even though we've spent a fair amount of time on this in previous MacVoices Live episodes. It just keeps getting weirder, and to their credit or blame, Beeper is playing this for all it's worth. It really is kind of amazing. So they've. And I don't know if anybody knows or has kept track of exactly when which comments were made. But at one point, first of all, you needed a Mac, and then you were going to have to give them their ID. Now they started talking about jailbreaking your iPhone so that you could use Beeper. Then Beeper came out and said, "Well, if Apple keeps doing this and they do it one more time, we're just gonna throw in the towel, and we're not gonna bother with it anymore. I mean, this just continues to fascinate me that the tech press, along with some of the other press, but the tech press seems to be embracing Beeper's position and failing to recognize that this is hacking of one description or another. In my mind, anyway, and from the articles I've read, there's no assurance that it's going to work at any given moment because of all the jousting back and forth. But more importantly, there's no guarantee that the very reason that you seem to want this, other than just blue bubbles, is security for Android. And there's no guarantee that you're going to have better security if you're handing over your credentials to a company that is willing to hack a Fortune 100 company servers to deliver their product.
Yeah. The Beeper Mini you're getting now is not the Beeper Mini that was promised. This is now pretty similar to the hacks that, what was it, OnePlus was using?
I don't even remember what OnePlus was, man.
It was one of those Android phone makers where essentially they were doing a relay service from like a Mac Stadium or something, Mac Mini server. But either way, essentially, you're getting a insecure connection.
So, I mean, somebody help me. Does this make any sense to anyone?
I'll try and help check. All right. So I think there's a lot of people writing articles about this where they have part of it, but they don't get the whole picture. Mm-hmm. And so they're writing articles where they're saying where they're looking at Beeper as the underdog hero in this story. And what they're missing, and they're so close to what the valid complaint is, which is, why is Apple not providing the service themselves? It's not just about giving Android users a secure messaging system. It's about ensuring that iPhone users that are communicating with Android users have a secure messaging system as well. Because when you get into these third-party companies that are doing what Beeper's doing, it either starts at or devolves to the point where it is now, where you cannot ensure the security and privacy of a message with an Android user that's using Beeper. So why isn't Apple doing the right thing for iPhone users and provide a version of iMessage secure messaging for Android users so that the messages are in fact secure? That's a much more valid argument. And I think that's where a lot of these people are getting really close, but they're just not quite seeing that part of it.
Yeah, which, by the way, is the angle that both the Department of Justice and the Federal Trade Commission are taking.
Which coincidentally happens to be the same position that Beeper is taking. That Apple is, because they won't allow Beeper to function, Apple is doing a disservice to their customers.
But the thing is, that's Apple's prerogative. Yeah, I would like it if Apple would do that, but it's not up to me. Apple shareholders have delegated the board and Tim Cook that decision, and they've made that decision. And I don't see how it's anybody else's business.
It certainly doesn't make it okay for Beeper to do what they're doing.
Yeah.
It certainly doesn't make that okay, but I think the whole argument, there's nothing stopping iPhone and Android users from using WhatsApp or Signal or, whatever, and most of the world they do. So Apple is not preventing, they're simply not subsidizing it.
Yeah.
We don't, iMessage must cost a fortune to run. And it would cost even more to run if it supported Android devices, with Apple getting no extra revenue from that. Yeah, it would be nice even for us as iOS users. I would love it if I didn't have to hassle with SMS when dealing with Jeff Gamet.
Yeah.
I do appreciate that joke more than anyone else here. This is why I love you, Jim.
This is the most inside of inside jokes.
Yes, it is.
I said we don't want to waste too much time on it, just because it seems like it's a story that's constantly evolving. I have no doubt that now today is December 26th. By the 27th or 28th, there will be another chapter to this. I just don't know what it's going to be. But one of my favorite headline of this whole thing was the last one I threw into the into the chat rooms. That it's from Mac Rumors. Beeper Mini jailbroken. I'm sorry. Beeper Mini resorts to jailbreaking iPhones to rescue blue bubbles.
Yeah. I mean, the Beeper Mini part of the story is pretty much over. They have no leg to stand on legally or technically.
Well, I kind of hope so, because I'm sick of it.
Yeah, that said, the Beeper Mini might have awoken other discussions that, we could be hearing a lot more about.
I'm Chuck Joyner, and I'll be back with more MacVoices Live discussions next time. As always, thanks for watching. Visit MacVoices.com for show notes and to connect with Chuck on social media. Get involved in our Facebook group or like our Facebook page, and get more out of your Apple tech with MacVoices Magazine, free on Flipboard and on the web. And if you find value in it all, consider supporting us through either our Patreon campaign at patreon.com/MacVoices, or by making a one-time donation via the PayPal link on our front page and in the show notes of each episode. You will join these fine people who help bring you Mac Voices. Advertising handled by Backbeat Media at backbeatmedia.com. Bandwidth provided by CacheFly at cachefly.com.